Welcome, Bellumnoxis Prime listeners. Steel your hearts, for the year is 1066. A year that would split kingdoms, shape nations, and carve the future of Europe in blood and fire. The throne of England has fallen empty. Edward the Confessor, the king without an heir, lies in his grave, and with him the fragile peace of the realm. In the halls of Westminster, the crown passes to Harold Godwinson, England's greatest earl and trusted man of war. Crowned by the church, hailed by the nobles, Harold sits upon the throne as the Saxon people's king. But beyond the Channel, storms gather. To the north, the thunder of Norway, Harald Hardrada, last of the great Viking kings, claims the throne of England by right of conquest, his longships cutting through the sea like spears of iron. To the south in Normandy, another claimant sharpens his blade, William, Duke of Normandy, who swears that Edward had promised him the crown, and that Harold himself had pledged loyalty to his claim. Whether oath or rumor, William calls it treachery, and treachery demands war. Thus, three men seek one crown. England stands at the center of a storm of steel. Harold marches north to meet the Norse invader, and at Stamford Bridge, he breaks the Viking tide, shattering Hardrada's army in a slaughter that drowns the fields in blood. Yet even as the Saxon shields are still wet with victory, word comes: William has crossed the sea. The Normans land upon England's southern shores, their cavalry stamping the earth, their archers stringing bows, their banners flying with the iron will of conquest. The Saxon king, weary from the march, weary from the fight, must turn his men south once more, dragging his battered army to face the storm of Normandy. The battlefield will be Hastings, in the rolling fields of Sussex. And here, upon that hill, the fate of England will be decided. Saxon shield wall against Norman horse, axe against lance, Old England against the dawn of a new order. The sun rises over England, but by its setting, one king will fall, and the age of Saxons will end forever. The dawn of October 14th, 1066 breaks cold over the hills of Sussex. The mists lift from the fields, and the armies of two worlds prepare to decide the fate of England. At the top of the hill stands Harold Godwinson, King of the Saxons. His men are weary, their bodies still marked by the brutal march from the north, where they had slain Harald Hardrada and broken the Viking tide at Stamford Bridge. Yet they stand with pride, for they know they fight for hearth, home, and crown. The Saxons form their most trusted weapon, the shield wall. Row upon row of men interlock great wooden shields rimmed with iron, their lines bristling with axes, spears, and swords. Behind them, Huskarls, Harold's elite warriors, grip the mighty Danish axes, weapons so heavy they can cleave both horse and rider in a single stroke. They pound their shields, chanting and roaring, a wall of flesh and steel that has withstood invaders for generations. Below them, on the open field, the Norman host arranges itself under the banner of Duke William of Normandy. It is a different army altogether, one born not of shield and axe, but of bow and horse. The archers line the front, arrows gleaming in the pale morning sun. Behind them stand the infantry, armored in chain, steady with sword and spear. And beyond them, the might of the Norman cavalry, mounted knights, armored chargers, lances lowered. The weapon that had broken armies across the continent, but had yet to shatter the Saxon shield. William himself rides among them, his voice strong, his command unwavering. To his men he promises victory. To his lords he promises lands, and to the Pope he carries a banner of holy sanction. His war blessed by the church, his conquest declared righteous in the eyes of Rome. The two armies face each other across the slope. The Saxons hold the high ground, their shields steady, their resolve unbroken. The Normans look upward, their cavalry restless, their archers eager. Hours pass in tense silence, the stillness broken only by the sound of drums, the stamping of hooves, the creak of leather, the distant cries of gulls over the coast. Men look to their lords, lords look to their kings, and kings look to the sky. The moment teeters upon a knife's edge. One misstep, one broken line, and all will collapse into chaos. The sun climbs higher. The ground quivers beneath horses ready to charge. The Saxon shield wall glitters like a wall of iron teeth. Both sides know this day will decide a kingdom, and neither will yield without blood. The silence before the storm is over. The first arrows are about to fly. The silence shatters. Norman horns sound deep and rolling, and the first wave surges forward. Archers loose their arrows, a black cloud rising into the morning sky before falling upon the Saxon ranks. The arrows rattle against shields, pierce mail, and strike the earth, but the Saxon line holds. Shields absorb the storm, axes wait in silence. William orders his infantry forward. Normans march up the slope, shields raised, spears leveled. The Saxons answer with a roar, slamming their shields together, their voices thundering across the hill. When the two forces meet, the air explodes with the sound of steel. Blades clash, men scream, shields splinter, blood spatters the earth, yet the shield wall holds, unbroken. The Saxons fighting shoulder to shoulder like a living fortress. Then comes the hammer, the Norman cavalry. Knights lower their lances, spurs dig into flanks, and the ground shakes with the charge. Horses thunder up the hill, hooves pounding like drums of war. They crash against the wall of shields and break. Saxon axes bite into horse and rider, dragging knights into the mud, smashing through armor with brutal sweeps. The shield wall does not yield. The cavalry is hurled back in blood and ruin. 3 times the Normans charge. 3 times they are thrown back. The Saxons roar in triumph, their hill defiant, their king unbroken. But in the chaos of battle, fate twists its hand. One wing of William's army falters. Rumors spread. The Duke is slain. Norman ranks waver. Men begin to flee down the slope. The Saxons see them turn, and their warriors, hot with blood, break discipline. They abandon the shield wall, chasing the fleeing Normans. It is the opening William has waited for. He tears off his helmet, rides through his ranks, and bellows, "I live! Look upon me! I live!" His men rally, their courage reignited. Then, in one ruthless stroke, he orders a feigned retreat. The Saxons, scattered and eager in pursuit, are caught on the open ground. Norman cavalry wheel around, flanking them, cutting them down with lances and swords. The trap is sprung. Again and again, William repeats the tactic. Attack, retreat, lure, and strike. Each time, more of the shield wall unravels, the Saxons drawn into the open, where Norman horses rule. The once unbreakable wall is thinning, cracks spidering through its line. As the sun dips lower, William unleashes his final assault. Archers are ordered to fire high, their arrows raining down in deadly arcs. Amid the storm, one finds its mark, striking King Harold Godwinson in the eye. He falls, his huscarls rushing to protect him, axes swinging until they are surrounded and slaughtered. The king of the Saxons is gone, buried beneath steel and mud. The Saxon line collapses, shields are dropped, men scatter, and the Normans sweep the hill, their cavalry cutting through the broken ranks. The field of Hastings is drowned in blood, the Saxon cause shattered in a single brutal stroke. The sun sets over Hastings, and the earth is thick with the dead. The cries of the wounded mingle with the cawing of carrion birds already circling above the field. Shields lie splintered, axes broken, banners trampled into the mud. Among the fallen lies Harold Godwinson, last Saxon king of England, struck down with sword and arrow. Around him, his huscarls lie where they stood, cut to pieces but unyielding to the last. The Saxon age ends here, on this hill of ruin. Never again would the House of Wessex rise to wear the crown. From the chaos rides William, Duke of Normandy, his armor dented, his sword stained, but his resolve unbroken. He has gambled his duchy, his men, his life, and won it all in one terrible day. No longer William the Duke, he will be remembered as William the Conqueror. Weeks later, he marches into London. Resistance flickers in pockets, but the Saxons are broken, their lords either slain, captured, or forced to bend the knee. On Christmas Day, 1066, within the sacred walls of Westminster Abbey, William is crowned King of England. As the crown is placed upon his head, shouts of acclamation rise, but so too does fear. Guards outside mistake the noise for rebellion and set fire to the surrounding houses. Flames light the sky even as prayers are spoken within. England is baptized into its new age with both ceremony and terror. The conquest begins! Norman lords seize Saxon lands. Castles rise where halls once stood, and the language of rulers shifts from Old English to French. Yet out of this storm of blood and iron, a new England is forged. An England reshaped by conquest, scarred by war, but bound together under a single crown. The Battle of Hastings was not merely a clash of armies. It was the turning of an age, the moment when the island's fate was wrenched from Saxon hands and thrust into Norman rule. The echoes of that day still shape the world, for from Hastings flowed kings, dynasties, and a kingdom that would rise to rule seas and continents. And so, Bellumnoxis Prime listeners, remember the hill at Hastings. Remember the shield wall that stood and the cavalry that broke it. Remember Harold, who fell, and William, who rose. For crowns are not inherited, they are taken in fire, in steel, in blood. Subscribe, join the Legion, and march with us into the Chronicles of War. The battlefield never sleeps, and the next storm already gathers beyond the horizon.